Happy Tuesday, good evening, and a very warm welcome to tonight's broadcast. It's a pleasure to have you join us. My name is Gloria Mutesi. Starting us off tonight, 4 new ambassadors from Norway, Australia, Hungary, and Cyprus to Rwanda have stated that they are going to strive that the relations between their respective countries and Rwanda are boosted even more for their mutual benefit. The new envoys presented their credentials to President Paul Kagame on Tuesday. Stationary with the details.
The ambassadors presented their credentials at Village Rugwiro, and the first was Norway's new envoy, who noted on the excellent relations that exist between her nation and Rwanda.
Well, the relationship between Rwanda and Norway has been good for a long time. There is a personal relationship between His Excellency the President and the Norwegian Prime Minister. They worked closely together in initiatives in the UN and under the African Union in the past. And hopefully that will be resumed again when the COVID is, leaving us, hopefully soon. Then we work closely with Rwanda on the Security Council issues, because Norway is now in the Security Council for 2 years. And also we work on tax for development. We have a project where Norway is providing funds for developing tax laws. We cooperate on the refugee initiative by Rwanda on taking refugees from Libya, which is also important. And last but not least, we are both champions on having female leaders in parliament and in society in general. And I think that is an area where we could cooperate more.
Hungary's new envoy noted on the extensive cooperation his country has undertaken with Rwanda when it comes to clean water distribution and the promotion of education.
Hungary ni inshuti yu Rwanda. Hungary is a friend of Rwanda, so we are having a common agreement, a framework agreement we are about to sign on a tied aid credit, a soft loan, 0% interest rate loan in the value of $50 million from the Hungarian government to the Rwandan government that will be spent on the water treatment plant in Karenje. So we are now in the elaboration of a concept note together with the Ministry of Infrastructure and the WASAC. And as soon as we have the plans ready, we'll sign a so-called framework agreement on financial cooperation, hopefully still this year. And if everything goes well, according to plan, next year the implementation can begin. The second one in education, we have just started from this year a scholarship program whereby we offer 20 scholarships, full scholarships, including accommodation, tuition, and allowance for 20 students in Rwanda. And the first year is from September of this year. Murakoze.
On his part, Australia's new ambassador to Rwanda noted that he will look to help expand the level of cooperation between his country and Rwanda.
I'm keen to identify where Australia can work more closely to increase our bilateral trade and investment. We need to understand that our trade and investment currently is modest, but there are opportunities to identify niche areas, particularly in ICT, agriculture and education.
Cyprus's new ambassador stated that his focus will be on boosting trade and investment between his country's private sector and that of Rwanda.
Priority now is the agreement, as we said, for the avoidance of double taxation. And of course, there are many more other things that we can do on the bilateral level. And I'm going to have actually, the day after tomorrow, another meeting with the business world practically, and, the equivalent to us, commerce and industry, and we'll take it from there. There are a lot of things that we can do. I promised the President that I will do anything in my power to enhance further our relations, which are already excellent.
The new Norwegian ambassador will have residence in Kampala, Uganda. The Australian and Hungarian ambassadors will be based in Nairobi, Kenya, while the Cypriot ambassador will have his residence in Doha, Qatar.
Now, as the number of infections and the death toll from COVID-19 continues to rise, the government on Tuesday took extra measures in a bid to curb the spread of the pandemic, including closure of all schools and other public spaces where many people are bound to meet. Sam Kalisa.
During the press conference, The Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente stressed that the decision to take these measures was made after careful consideration and that it was made with the best interests of Rwandans at heart. When thinking of these measures during this battle we are fighting of the pandemic, we first thoroughly think through them because we're thinking of both the virus but also the livelihoods of Rwandan people. That's why when we say movements are prohibited, we don't stop the transportation of foodstuff essential products because we know provinces depend on each other when it comes to foodstuff, but these cars should limit the number of persons traveling in them. We should respect the guidelines altogether and beat this together. The Minister of Health, Dr. Daniel Ngamije, said that in the last 4 weeks, the number of COVID-19 cases has risen sharply and about 90% of them had no symptoms. We had space in hospitals that are dedicated to people suspected of having infectious diseases, but we also have specific hospitals for COVID-19 treatment. The numbers have been on the rise recently in June. For instance, at the Nyarugenge Treatment Center, at the beginning of June, we had less than 20 patients. Currently, there are over 127 patients. Generally, the number of patients has increased, and in the treatment course includes giving them oxygen because it's a requirement for some of the COVID-19 patients, among other services we give them. What's evident is that tests have increased tenfold in the hospitals. Dr. Ngamije also reiterates that health authorities are continuing to closely monitor the situation. In regards to the new variants, research is being done. An Indian variant is being discovered in the neighborhood countries. It wouldn't be a shock if we also got it here in Rwanda. It's very possible because the virus keeps mutating. But what's important is adhering to the prevention guidelines. Because we know how this virus spreads, we know it kills both the young and the old, those with chronic diseases and those without. But also know that we can avoid all that if we respect these measures. Health authorities say the virus is mostly prevalent in 14 districts of the country. Among the new measures that have been taken this Tuesday, that will take effect on the 1st of July, include a curfew of 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. in Kigali and other districts, where the virus is prevalent, with places of worship closed in districts.
Thank you, Sam Kalisa. Staying on the same note, the Ministry of Local Government is urging people to avoid all activities that encourage social gatherings, especially in their homes, citing that this is one of the main causes of the spread of the coronavirus. This is after a big number of those infected currently got the virus from visiting others under the guise of praying for them. The Ministry of Health estimates that 95% of the more than 9,000 people currently infected with COVID-19 as of Tuesday don't have any symptoms, and most of them are under the home-based care. We decided to treat them from home, and we are working with local authorities to follow up on them. This is something that we've been doing before, and so we work with the Ministry of Local Government to establish those that need help beyond just the medical care that we provide. However, the Ministry of Local Government says that there are some people that have been phoned to go visit these patients that are in the home-based quarantine under the guise of going to pray for them. We have seen cases of people who are under the home-based care having people come over to their homes to visit them and pray for them. Only health counselors are allowed to visit COVID-19 patients. It's wrong for people to go dance, sing, and pray for the COVID-19 patients because that's how the virus spreads. So the local authorities have a responsibility to check on these people to find out what they might need and assist them under the guidance of the health authorities. The Rwanda National Police indeed acknowledges that they have arrested some people caught in people's homes who later tested positive for the virus. Most of the people the police has arrested for going beyond the COVID-19 prevention measures are those that have gone to visit each other in homes and others that hold house parties. And these people often test positive for COVID-19. And so that's the perception we're trying to fight of how one can leave their home and go spread the virus to other people without knowing their status. The Minister for Local Government is urging people to avoid such activities as local authorities have found out that such are the root causes of the spread of the pandemic. He relates this to people on social media that have been seen asking that no strict measures should be put in place, including a lockdown. The only way we can avoid the total lockdown is by adhering to the prevention measures, because if all people got sick in the country, then no one would be able to treat the other. This is the time for reflection for all Rwandans to see how they can protect themselves and their loved ones. An example is a lady we saw in a certain district whose child got infected from a school and then the virus spread within the family. So the only way is to really take care by wearing your face mask and fulfill all the measures. The Ministry of Health estimates that the number of new cases has increased fourfold this June, ultimately leading to an increase to those being treated in hospitals needing special care. Now, still in COVID-19 related matters, health experts believe that one of the reasons for the high incidence of COVID-19 infections in the city of Kigali is that there's a high concentration of people in public spaces, such as markets, public transport, among other places, including complacency in these areas.
Sibomana Jackson and Sanjumva Evarist are businessmen in the city of Kigali in Nyarugenge Market. They express concern over the increase of COVID-19 infections currently. We are constantly worried, especially when we find our colleagues in a close proximity. I always remind them that the camera is watching them, so they should maintain social distancing. When we hear of the increase in infections, we are concerned because they might put us back into lockdown, and that means that our work comes to a standstill. There are even people that survive by hand-to-mouth. Increase in COVID-19 infections means worry for some of us. Across different markets and other places where people meet from, you find awareness campaigns reminding people what's required of them.
Ambara neza agapfukamunwa kandi uhagararane na mugenzi wawe neza usizemwe intera ya metero. COVID-19 ntabwo irarangira, niyo mpamvu dukomeza gufata ingamba zo kuyirinda.
Dr. Vedast Nahinwa, a public health expert, says overcrowding is one of the main causes of increased COVID-19 infections in Kigali. Compared to other parts of the country, Kigali bursts with activity. We go to work by car, go back home by car. The markets we go to are crowded, people work in crowded offices. This all requires us to be vigilant and protecting ourselves. New infections recorded on Monday were 757, with the highest number in the city of Kigali accounting for 280, followed by Musanze district with 80 cases. It's while 7 people succumbed to the virus on Monday, increasing the number of fatalities in Rwanda to 427. Close to 37,400 COVID-19 infections have been registered in Rwanda since the virus was first detected in March 2020, while there are currently close to 9,700 known active cases.
Now, officials at the National Youth Council are urging young people to refrain from neglecting the COVID-19 prevention guidelines as the spread of the virus continues to escalate. Some of the people not respecting the prevention guidelines include the youth, and some of them attribute this to not knowing the seriousness of the pandemic. There are places you'd find people in crowded spaces when they are not even wearing face masks. But the virus doesn't care about all that. There are parties hosted in people's homes, perhaps bridal showers or birthday parties, among others, and we even forget that the pandemic is serious out here and is fatal. Parents too acknowledge the negligence of the youth in respecting the prevention measures and are asking them to support the authorities by urging the youth to protect themselves. I usually see young people walking in crowds and most of them are not wearing face masks, or even those that are wearing them are not wearing them appropriately. While the youth are being blamed for helping to spread the virus, there are some young people that have taken it upon themselves to volunteer in the fight against the pandemic. People mostly neglect wearing the face masks, but we're always sensitizing them about the importance of adhering to the set guidelines. There is a perception that when they've washed their hands when they are coming from home, they shouldn't wash them again when they get to school, not knowing that it is possible to get infected along the way. Apart from the youth, it's everyone's role to stop the spread of the pandemic, according to the Commissioner General of the Rwanda National Police. Those of us that know the importance of wearing a face mask, let's teach other people as well to do so. Most of the people the police has arrested for going beyond the COVID-19 prevention guidelines are those that have gone to visit each other in homes and others that hold house parties. And these people often test positive for COVID-19, and so that's the perception we're trying to fight, of how one can leave their home and go spread the virus to other people without even knowing their status. Officials at the National Youth Council are urging other young people to stop violating the COVID-19 prevention guidelines because the virus doesn't favor anyone. According to the National Youth Council, more than 10,000 young people are volunteering in the fight against the pandemic, and it's working to see that the number is increased, especially in rural areas. The council also says that while there's an increase of COVID-19 infections across the country, they've started a social media campaign targeting young people who like to use those sorts of sites. Away from Kigali, 144 families are celebrating after being resettled at a modern settlement in Kinigi. The families were considered among some of the most vulnerable in society. District officials say that other modern settlements like these are to be built in Kinigi so that the areas around the national park are left for tourism purposes. Seshnore with the details.
Angela Nyiramirima is 85 years old, and we found her packed up and ready to go to her new apartment at the Kinigi model settlement, which she was looking forward to because life in her old house was difficult. I was afraid of living here by myself, and my children live far from me, so whenever they were failing to bring water to cook, I was going hungry. Angela was finally able to move into her new apartment in the morning hours of Tuesday, fully furnished and self-contained. She almost did not believe that it belongs to her, and like others moving into the modern settlement, she found it hard to express just how happy she is. I am grateful to the President of the Republic who has given me so much over the years and now has given me my own fully furnished apartment. God is truly using him, that he should give us a place we can spend our old age comfortably. There are enough rooms here for my children and I. The kitchen, bathroom and other living quarters are also fully furnished. I used to see this sort of thing only in places like Kigali, and now these facilities have been brought right here home in Kinigi. We had no electricity and water, and now those things are right there in the apartments. The modern settlement, with its apartment blocks, has its own paved roads and gardens, carpentry center, as well as tailoring facilities to help the youth start their own income-generating activities. The area's hospital has been upgraded, and the local school also expanded to include 2 smart classrooms and a library for the students. District officials say other modern settlements like this are to be built in Kinigi so that areas around the national park are left for tourism purposes.
As Rwanda prepares to mark the 27th anniversary of her liberation, people who are resettled in areas of Nyagatare district that used to be part of the Akagera National Park say that the rate of development they've seen emphasizes the good leadership the country has enjoyed since 1994.
The key sectors of Nyagatare district that came into existence after the country was liberated are Matimba, Rwimiyaga and Karangazi, and their rate of development is attested to by the people who started living in them in 1995. There were many wild animals here, things like buffaloes and lions. The lions were killing our cattle in broad daylight. Nyarufumburi was full of lions. It was very difficult for us with no houses and water. It was as if we were living like animals ourselves. The closest health center was at Nyagatare. This entire area was part of the national park and no one lived here. Grazing was done almost by force, and you had to be ready to fight off wild animals to do that. The area today is nothing like it used to be. There are health posts everywhere, and our sector has its own health center. And the furthest school is never more than 1 kilometer from the children. This is what true liberation means, having your own country. Not having your own country is like being dead. And better still is having good leaders.
The
government gave us a reservoir and we were able to provide water for our livestock on our farms. Then came the schools and other forms of infrastructure like roads, and life became progressively better. Nyagatare district officials say, however, that much more is coming, with things like the Muvumba multipurpose dam looking to transform the district even more. In the next 2 years, we expect an extra 12,000 cubic meters of clean water daily thanks to that project. That will certainly be enough for the local communities to use, for drinking and so on. And as for the livestock, we are also working on that with other projects, in addition to the Muvumba multipurpose dam. The mayor acknowledges that his district has come a long way in the last 27 years. All of the areas you are talking about did not exist and were full of wild animals. There was no life to speak of, no health centers, schools, electricity or clean water. Now those are basic necessities you will find wherever communities are found. To me, that is what liberation means. Indeed, the sectors of Matimba, Rwimiyaga and Karangazi are the fastest growing in Nyagatare district, and the development rate is astounding for people who have watched the area transformed over the decades. The sectors also have the most agricultural activities in the entire district.
Well, that's all we had for you tonight. Thank you for the privilege of your time. Have a wonderful rest of the week. The pandemic is still ravaging, so show up for yourself and those around you by doing all that's required of you to stop its spread. Otherwise, God bless you and keep you. And until next time, I'm Gloria Mutesi. Bye for now.